Welcome to AI Fundamentals for Business Professionals. In this course, we want to really discuss how AI can be used to improve your business. When it comes to AI, businesses really need to understand it because it's an evolving area that can provide immediate value to the organization and its customer base as well. So we want to understand the customer's needs and preferences and also provide the customer everything from recommendations to personalized content to immediate responses based on questions they pose or things that they search for. Now, if we're able to provide AI services, then this can also lead to better quality customers, but also to higher conversions as well, and a better return for the business as well. So the course is going to cover the basics of AI. We're going to talk about the role of AI in business. I'm going to talk about how we can identify the benefits to a business using AI. We're going to talk about how you can prepare your business to use AI as well. Then we'll talk about specific segments such as marketing and sales, talent acquisition. We'll also talk about how we could optimize AI as well for performance. We'll also talk about operations and supply chain management. We'll talk about how AI could be used for fraud detection, finance and accounting, and also we'll go ahead and focus on how AI is actually being developed and where it can go as well and provide value to our business. As far as this course, there's 8 modules. They're broken into business fundamentals, implementing AI in business, marketing and sales, applications and human resources, operations and supply chain, finance and accounting, and the future of AI in business, and then the course closeout. Now, as far as course resources, the presentation's available on this site that you're viewing the course on. The ebook also as well has a wealth of information and the documentation links. Then also the course provides you AI tool demonstrations and then whiteboard discussions as well to help reinforce the learning. By the end of the course, you should have the ability to understand how AI can impact business, how to integrate AI, and advice on how to get started as well. Lastly, the target audience for the course would be business owners, content creators, IT professionals, and anyone just really learning about AI and wants to get started with AI. With that said, we have a lot to cover in the course, so let's continue on with the next lesson. Instructor introduction. Before we get started, let's do a quick introduction to your instructor, Joe Holbrook. I've been in the industry for over 25 years. I've had a number of different roles. Currently, I'm the CLO of Tech Commanders here in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm a well-known content creator and also a published author and technical trainer. We have a lot to cover in the course, so let's continue on. Welcome to Module 1. In Module 1, we want to go ahead and focus on what AI is and understand why it's so important to businesses. We'll talk about what the role of AI is to business and also talk about some of the benefits of AI and how businesses can employ AI to really increase those benefits to not only the customer but to themselves as well. And we'll talk about via whiteboard exactly how all this works in the back end. And I'll also go into a demonstration with Google Bard and walk you through how to get started using Google Bard. We have a lot to cover in this module, so let's continue on. In this lesson, let's talk about the basics of AI. what exactly is AI, why it's important, what are some of the types of AI available. First, let's define AI. AI is short for artificial intelligence. What is AI? It's the process of software development that is really using people to manually program software to act as a human, to provide an intelligent response that is simulating human response. Now, AI holds the potential to revolutionize a lot of different parts of society as well as business. Everything from problem solving to productivity to efficiency to even, for example, how things are managed from not only a high level to a lower level. Now, there's another definition I want to talk about just to give you an idea of some of the different definitions that are out there. This is from Oxford Dictionary. They define AI as the theory and development of computer systems that are capable to perform tasks, and again, key, perform tasks such as visual perception, speech recognition, and translation between languages. So when we consider those different definitions, AI is really nothing more than software development that is providing an interface that is created by humans that provide pre-populated responses to a software program that we're going to use, and in return, we're going to get a response that sounds like a human, is another way I like to state it. Okay, when we consider AI, there's really two specific levels or types of AI to consider. There's weak AI, which is really here now. So that's going to be our ChatGPT, etc., Watson. These are just some of the examples. And then we have strong AI. And this is really more futuristic, where you look at movies such as Star Trek or books like 1984, where computer systems or AI systems specifically are going to be able to make decisions automatically and enforce it as well. So it's a little bit different. We don't really have strong AI now, but I did want to talk about it briefly. All right, so when we consider weak AI, this is considered artificial narrow intelligence, known as ANI as the acronym for short. Now, weak AI or narrow AI is task-oriented, and this is really determined by how it was programmed. So this is predetermined, is really the way software development would look at it. So when I say software development, what I'm saying is we're going to have a bunch of labor basically enter any number of different questions and answers, responses to questions, reactions to input, right? That's really what weak AI is. It's not really simulating human intelligence in the sense of thinking like a human. AI today is only going to be able to respond how it knows to respond, which is how it's been programmed to respond. It's not going to have intuition. It's not going to be able to react based on how it feels. So that is really what we want to think about with AI today. Now, examples of weak AI could be IBM Watson, self-driving cars, facial recognition, etc. ChatGPT, Siri, Alexa, right? These are all terms and companies and services that we all probably have heard of. Now that we know about weak AI, we also want to be aware that there is what's known as strong AI. Strong AI is AI that's being developed to mimic human intelligence and problem-solving capabilities. This is still a work in progress, and some of these examples around where strong AI is being built around, developed around, is recognition, recall, hypothesis testing, imagination, analogies, implications, just to name a few areas. Now, weak AI can address at a high level like recognition. Recognition meaning that it could look at a face and determine who that is. However, it's not able to do that without having everything actually programmed ahead of time and ingested. So there's still that area that weak AI versus strong AI is really different. So be aware of that. There is a third type of artificial superintelligence known as ASI for short. Now, this type of artificial intelligence is really science fiction. There's no reality to it, but it's meant to engage people to think about what could be possible down the road. This is really what I refer to as our Star Trek type of AI, where you have the Star Trek Voyager being controlled by all of these different systems that can automatically manage this, manage that, react to human input, and act like a human, and really have much better capabilities than a human would ever have. What is really the potential, though? The goal of ASI is to really think about how AI will outperform humans and develop self-awareness. With that said, just be aware that we have weak AI, which is what we have today, and then we have strong AI, which is where the future is sort of trying to drive us, at least how development is looking at it. Then we have AI types that we want to think about that are based on functionality. So that's going to be reactive machine, limited memory, theory of mind, self-awareness. Again, these are all variations that could be implied with AI, automated intelligence. Then we also have narrow AI, general AI, and super AI. I won't dive into the details of each. They're sort of beyond the scope of the course, but I wanted to at least point out how complex AI can really get and how specialized it can get as well. Now, what would be the goals of AI? AI is really meant to enable machines to learn and behave intelligently for a number of different reasons. Could be for problem solving, for knowledge representation, for planning purposes, for learning, for social intelligence, predictive capabilities. So when AI is implemented, it's really meant to provide that organization value around a specific area. And this is far from the only particular objectives that AI can provide, but again, just to give you some insight around where it can fit in and what would be the real goals of AI. Now, in summary, AI has a lot of different capabilities, and we could use it from recommendation engines to how we could interact through a virtual assistant. And we also want to be aware, too, that we could use this for personalization of a website, of an application, to managing customers. And this can be implemented through chatbots, predictive learning, recommendation engines. So AI is widely used already, and there's certainly a lot more different use cases that are coming on the market, a ton of different applications. So with that said, in the course, we're going to go into a lot of these in much more detail. So with that said, let's proceed on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about how AI could really step up the game for companies and really provide value to the organization. When it comes to AI in business, it's important to realize that businesses are really looking for AI to really fill a role in one sense or another for the company. Whether it is marketing or customer service or logistics, companies are really having high hopes for AI to not only bring value to the organization, but also the customer base as well. With that said, it's important to realize that AI in business is really about bringing value via data, via improving processes, reducing costs, and any number of other potential roles that AI could fill. Now, when it comes to AI, what we should expect AI to really provide companies is the ability to increase productivity. If we're able to increase our value to customers in the sense that we are able to respond to them quicker or to remedy issues faster, then this is a really important concept to think about for companies. So when it comes to companies, they're also looking at market advantage. If they're able to use AI tools and it's able to bring them an advantage in the market that they're in, this of course provides value as well. Being able to avoid mistakes in processes. Anytime that we have manual processes, we have the potential to have mistakes being induced into the process because people make mistakes. So if we're able to have AI perform some of these processes, whether it is managing a budget or responding to a customer or ordering supplies, then this hopefully will reduce potential mistakes. Improved customer service really seems to be the main area that we see AI being implemented in, at least from the front-end perspective of the business. When it comes to AI, it's important to realize that we need to understand what the customer needs and prefers. And one of the things that we see quite a bit, especially in e-commerce, is the ability to go to a website and order products, and then over time we'll notice that we have a recommendation engine really in the background providing us, maybe this product would be a good fit. If we go to like Amazon, they have this really innate ability to always provide not only one product that you want to buy, but 2 or 3 in a lot of cases. For example, you'll see if you buy an aquarium, it'll also have under that aquarium, customers that buy this usually would buy this as well. And it's a bundle that they try to sell you. Another thing, too, is the ability to get personalized content is important. So if you go to, let's say, a website and you log in, you might have content that's been catered to you. This is a very common implementation of AI. Lastly, if we're able to provide the customer a better experience, this hopefully in return will bring the organization a better return on investment as well. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. Lesson, let's talk about the benefits of AI. Now, every business looking at AI will likely have different expectations and different results from the implementation of AI in their organization. Now, some of the benefits that organizations are looking for to realize would be everything from faster decision making to lower costs as a very common example. Now, when we look at faster decisions, we want to realize that companies are looking for ways to reduce manual errors, to be able to come to a conclusion a little bit quicker, to make a decision quicker. And because of that, AI is playing a role. There's a lot of different tools out there for companies to implement, whether it's in their marketing department for making ad purchases for social media, or for making decisions on how to respond to a customer that is looking for specific types of services. Those software tools are out there. Now, costs, as we would expect, is a very common expectation that companies are looking for when they implement AI. We want to be able to reduce the overhead of providing a service to increase profits. That, of course, is a given. Another thing that AI could provide organizations could be around better job allocation. Now, when it comes to organizations, they want to have AI really fill a role. And what I mean by that is companies are looking for ways to implement AI that will reduce costs, but also eliminate the need to hire someone or to have additional third parties involved, or even to have to purchase additional software licenses. There's a number of different things that companies are really realizing that AI can provide. Scalability. So if a company is able to use AI software to be able to scale up, then that's a huge benefit to the company. Whether it is the ability to have AI come on board at a right time during the year, let's say you're an e-commerce company and you're able to respond to customer issues quicker, this is a big deal. So if companies are able to do more with less, again, value has been provided in that case to the organization. When it comes to some other benefits of AI, it also provides the company agility in the sense that they're able to move into new markets quicker, or they're able to provide additional value, let's say, to their shareholders through a greater return that could be not only cumulative, but immediate in some cases as well. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to go through a whiteboard and walk you through how AI can work for your business, and I'll provide a few examples in this specific discussion. Let's go to the whiteboard and find out more. ChatGPT is a revolutionary technology, really because of the fact that it is trained to actually understand what humans mean when they ask a question. So, for example, when you ask ChatGPT what is the best blockchain certification, or how to cook trout, or what does ChatGPT think of the Atlanta Braves, it is actually preempting that response based on previous responses that have been assembled effectively in its learning library that it is actually referencing. Now, ChatGPT is able to provide what is really human quality responses because of the fact that it is able to provide you a conversational dialogue. And because of that conversational dialogue, it provides responses that appear to be human. So first, when a user queries, how do I cook trout, or can you provide a recipe for cooking trout on a campfire that uses lemon and butter, then ChatGPT is going to first go in the back of its learning library that is going to have, of course, a wealth of context that it's going to reference. It's going to provide you this response, And it's going to first, of course, before it provides a response, needs to understand the input. So it's going to understand that input based on the library that it has collected and assembled. The next thing that happens is that it's going to generate what is called a reactionary answer. This reactionary answer is based on not only the context but the intent as well. So for example, ChatGPT can pick up, in some cases, the context of how something is written from a human perspective. So as an example, if I ask ChatGPT, can you write me a cool blog on how to surf at a beach in San Diego, it'll pick up cool as sort of inferring as something that's acceptable or in demand or however you want to define cool, like it's nice or whatever the context may be. And it'll pick that up from its collection of data that it has in the back end that it is referring to. ChatGPT uses what's called a large language model, and this large language model is really a chatbot that has been really designed to really interact with humans from a conversational perspective. And so because of that, it also has been programmed to determine what might be the next word in a sentence. So for example, I want to go hiking in the Smoky Mountains on this, and if I leave it blank, it'll pick up, for example, maybe I want to go on, let's say, the Bear Mountain Trail or the Waterfall Trail, just as an example. I have no idea what the trails are called in the park, let's say, okay? Just as an example, it'll be able to pick that up if that is in the library. So when it comes to ChatGPT, though, it is also important to know that it is able to not only provide not just one response, but multiple responses. So when you go into ChatGPT and say, generate another response, it's going to look for other data that's been basically populated and say, okay, well, this other data shows this, while this other data says that. So it's looking at, again, different responses that it could use and providing you the response based on how it looks at the context and intent of your prompt. So what is going to happen here is that ChatGPT is going to use the large language model to help predict the next word in the series of what would be words in a sentence or a paragraph. And what's interesting is that it is sort of like, it's almost in some respects similar to like autocomplete. So for example, if you're on your desktop and you start typing an email with like Outlook, it's auto-predicting what exactly you might be thinking or what might be the next logical response or word in that sentence. So think about it from that perspective. So think of how LLM works as sort of like a mini autocomplete or text. You use your cell phone and you start typing, honey, I am going to be home in a few, and before you even put in like hours, it's going to probably pop up the option for you to just select hours. So that's really autocomplete. Okay, so that is really how the back end is sort of referring to your input. Also, it's important to realize that this LLM provides the ability to write paragraphs and entire pages of content as well. Now, one thing about LLMs is that they're not really going to fully understand everything in a lot of respects. So what also ChatGPT does is it also provides training. And this training here is really focused on what is called reinforcement learning human feedback, which I think is actually referred to as reinforcement learning with human feedback. So this is how ChatGPT really builds on AI in itself. So this training is actually, again, really looking at things from a human perspective. Okay, so it uses what's called RLHF. Some of these acronyms can be sort of confusing. All right, it is important to realize that ChatGPT does have an architecture that has two phases or stages. The first is the pre-training stage. The second is the tuning phase. Now, the pre-training uses what is really called a learning model, which could be typically either supervised or unsupervised. But the architecture that is really used with, for example, ChatGPT is really based on what's called a transformer architecture. This is really a neural network. And again, the goal of this specific architecture is to really simulate basically a human brain. And in a nutshell, the goal of using ChatGPT is to get basically a human-like response and to have a response that's actually going to make sense. Now, there's certainly a lot of different approaches that could be used, and I didn't want to get into a lot of the technical details for this course, but I did want to just give you an idea that there's really two stages. So we also have the tuning. The tuning stage, it's really more or less a refinement of the data that has been pre-trained. So we're going to assemble basically in this phase the data sets. We're going to, of course, consider as well in the back end the architecture, which is a transformer-based architecture. And with that said, it uses what's called training data sets in a nutshell. All right, so how does this really all come together, though, from a user perspective? Again, the user doesn't care what happens in the back end. They just want to make sure that they make a query to ChatGPT, and that query, which is sent basically as a chat message, which we call a prompt, is going to be understood, and then they'll get a response that actually makes sense, and that response is called a reactionary answer. Now remember, when we enter information into ChatGPT, we need to make sure that we enter that information not only from a context perspective, but what exactly do we want ChatGPT to put together? Do we need a list? Do we need to have a descriptive menu, or do we need to have an interactive menu? What are we really looking for? So ChatGPT is pretty complex on the back end, but from a user perspective, it's relatively simple. We're really just entering input, and then we're getting output based on what? Based on the language learning model that has really been backed up by data sets and pre-trained and tuned and all that. And we're getting what's called this answer that is going to be human-like. That is our reactionary answer. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to dive into a demonstration of Google Bard AI, and I'm going to provide you some insight into how you get started with Google Bard, and also talk about how it works and provide some examples. So let's get started and go to the demonstration. Google Bard is one of the newer chatbots, and it has been released by Google. Now, it's still in the experimental phase, so that means it's not production. However, it is open to the public now. There is no wait list, and it's actually somewhat different in a lot of respects than ChatGPT because of the fact that it does use a very different model than what ChatGPT or even Bing uses. So with Google, it's using what is called the PaLM model, which is the Pathways Language Model, and I believe it's version 2. And so it really is very different in that sense versus GPT versions. Now, what is also nice about Google Bard is that they're saying that it will support image creation. So that means that you could put in a prompt, say, create me an image with a cat sitting on the top of the house eating, I don't know, cat food. So that's really what it's going to be able to do. Sort of similar to what DALL-E does as far as the OpenAI world. So that's something worth noting. Now, when we prompt, it's really the same thing. You want to type in a prompt that is going to make sense. Now, if you haven't taken a ChatGPT or Bard course, definitely check out the ones that we have created. So if that's available on the platform that you're viewing, I encourage you to get into that just because I dive deep into each of those subjects. Now, with that said, I just want to make sure that you're aware that Google does actually go out to the internet to actually train, which is different than how ChatGPT does, where with ChatGPT, you're limited to basically 2021 for results. So that's a significant difference. I'm going to go ahead now and enter a prompt. And I want to ask Bard to let me know how the best way to start a business with $1,000 would be in the United States right now. So we're going to go ahead and hit submit. You can see it's doing its work. And now it has come back with a few different ways to start a business. And it gives you an idea of different types of businesses. It tells you a few things you should do. It tells you that it's not easy to start a business. And then it gives you some additional tips. Now, in reality, this is okay. It's not something I would certainly would rely on. It's not something that I feel would be super technical or helpful. This is really 101 type of response. So sure, it did give us the answer, but again, as you see, it's really, really basic. Now, what I want to point out too is you could rate the response here. You could also export it as well, and you could put it into Google Docs or Gmail. And then you could also just take that to Google directly. And this will pop up the topics that you could select. And it gives you a list of articles here that come up in the search. So that's, again, just how you could at least get started with Bard. And that way you start learning it, and then when it's production, you will likely see that a lot of this will provide some probably better insight down the road. Now also too, it doesn't have the regenerate response like you would have in ChatGPT or Bing. So if I wanted to try to basically get a different answer, I would need to go over here, copy this, put this in, and then I would need to change this somehow to get a different response. So instead of saying what is the best way to start a business with $1,000 in the United States, what I'm going to do is let's be a little bit more specific. I'm going to say Florida, and instead of just a business, I'm going to say a catering business. So that way, it's going to hopefully provide us more specifics. So let's hit submit. And it's doing its work. Okay, so you see that it's really the same thing that it churned out here. Really no different whatsoever. So with ChatGPT, it would literally provide me significantly different responses, and it would also provide somewhat more details as well. So with that said, I just want to give you an idea of Google Bard. It's still a work in progress, but again, it's a different use case as well, in my opinion. So give it a try, and let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Welcome to Module 2. In this module, we want to start diving into how you could get started using AI tools in your business. The first lesson, we want to discuss how to prepare your business for integrating different tools. Then we want to talk about how you could assemble a business strategy for AI-based services, things to consider, and also a workflow. We'll also dive into how you could identify the best tools for your business as well as the segment that you're in. We'll then get into a demonstration on a social media tool that's AI-based called Hack Social. Then I'm going to dive into ChatGPT and walk you through how to get started and also provide you some insight into some of the common tests that you could implement immediately using ChatGPT for your business. We have a lot to cover in the module, so let's proceed on to the first lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about ways we could help prepare our business for AI integration. When it comes to AI in business, remember it's a broad category, and we may be looking at AI to provide us capabilities in a number of different areas. It could be used for automation and streamlining our processes, whether it's a sales cycle, whether it's supporting the customer. We could use it to predict and prevent faults. So we could consider AI as a way to mitigate concerns. We could use AI as well for looking at patterns in our sales cycle or in how customers procure our services, just as a simple example. We could also look at it to determine what would be the best market to get into, or we could look at it as a method to look at the return on investment we get and help identify areas to improve upon. So there's a lot of things here we could use AI for. We could also use AI to minimize the cycle time. So cycle time being how long it takes to start something and how long it takes to finish something. That could be our sales cycle. That could be our product development. That could be our procurement processes. Whatever that cycle is focused on, we could reduce that time. Lastly, we could also use it for generating content, which is one of the more obvious reasons we want to use AI. Now, AI can empower our organization in two main ways. So those two main ways would be automation and augmentation. So what's the difference between automation and augmentation? Automation is where we're removing humans from the process. Augmentation is where we're using humans, but we're empowering them with some AI capability. So let's talk about an example here. We could deploy on our website a chatbot. That chatbot is going to allow us to provide what is really pre-populated answers or responses to the customer. That is automation. On the other hand, maybe we want to add automation and augmentation to that chatbot. What we could do is add those FAQs, those common questions and answers, and then let's say, for example, if we're not able to provide the customer a good enough response, then what we could do is augment that with a human who then can step into the chat and basically look at the previous history of the initial chat and then determine, okay, the customer asked these questions, provided these responses, and now I need to assist the customer directly. So that is an example of how a company could use automation and augmentation. Now, What about a strategy? How can we look at AI and determine what is the right strategy? Now, it's important to realize that there isn't one strategy that's going to fit all. And as an organization, we could apply several of these or all of these as well, depending on the scale of our use case where AI is going to fall into. So efficiency. That is where activities are going to be optimized through automation. We're going to remove the humans from the process. Effectiveness strategy. This is where we're going to add activities that are going to be more automated, more efficient, and are going to enable better communication, as an example, like between a customer and support. An expert strategy is where AI is used to empower decision making. A company can go out and use a CRM platform and ask the system to determine what would be the top 5 customers we should invite out for an all-expense paid dinner trip or meetup or whatever you want to call it. And that way the company doesn't have to send out like 100 emails or 1,000 emails and then invite the wrong people to the dinner. Innovation strategy. This is where AI could be used to get us to think about things that we may not think about, and that hopefully will provide additional creativity. Okay, now that we understand what a strategy is and what are some different types of AI that we want to consider and how it can be employed, how we can empower our organization, now let's talk about how exactly we could integrate AI in the business. Before we do anything, we need to always review and analyze workflows effectively for what would hopefully give us a competitive advantage. As an example, if we have a sales workflow that has 8 steps and we're able to get it down to 6 or 5, that is a workflow that may provide a competitive advantage compared to another company that we compete with. We then want to determine the AI strategy. Remember, what is the strategy that we want to use? Are we going to automate, or are we going to use another approach to empowering the right strategy in our organization? We then want to look at the right platform and then automate those activities appropriately. If it's a CRM app, we want to use the AI tools to focus on what? Managing our customer relationships. If it's an SEO AI tool, we want to use that to improve our SEO. After we determine the platform and activities, we then move on to entering the data, training, evaluating, and optimizing the AI. For example, if we want to optimize YouTube videos, vidIQ is a great tool to do that. And what that does is it allows us via AI to generate ideas. And then based on those ideas it provides us, we then can enter more data and then train that to provide us. And actually, before it does that, it's going to analyze those keywords and then provide you data and insight based on the history of that keyword compared to competitors, what exactly you may want to improve upon. Lastly, we should train our staff and integrate AI into all the workflows that it needs to be incorporated in, integrated in, defined as well as part of the process. Now, there's a lot more that goes into this technically. This is a high-level workflow. Now, there's some other considerations that we want to look at. such as what does the applications use? Are they SaaS applications, or are they actually on-prem custom-built applications? APIs are going to be a big deal. One thing to be aware of, too, is that we could use a platform such as Zapier that can make these workflows a lot easier to manage, especially in an organization that doesn't have the technical expertise to put it all together. So with that said, integrating AI from a high-level perspective is fairly straightforward, but there's still a lot there to entail to really comprehend. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's go through a whiteboard and walk through how we create a business strategy for our AI integration and implementation for our business. Let's go to the whiteboard. Developing an AI strategy can certainly take some time and will take some initiative between you and your team members, your customers, stakeholders, whatever the scenario is. But there's really 3 phases to creating an AI strategy, and the workflow for this goes as follows. So we have phase 1. This is our business plan for AI. This is where we want to set our goals and identify what exactly we want to accomplish going to AI. For example, if we have a logistics application that has a lot of manual processes, and if we identify those manual processes and turn them into AI-focused automated processes, then that would be a goal to effectively set up those processes to use AI. And other goals could be to set a target budget that might be lower, so perhaps get a better return on investment for the application. Whatever that goal is, we want to define them. That's really the main point here, is let's define the goals first. Then what we want to do is take those goals and try to find use cases. See if we see anything that matches what we're doing. If we are a telecom company, let's say, then let's see if you could find some use cases of other telecom companies that have deployed AI, or if you can't find a telecom company, try to find at least a similar use case to what you're trying to do. So that's really important. The next thing is funding, right? We need to make sure we have funding to be able to get working on this specific AI strategy. So if the funding isn't there, if you don't see it there, then being able to move to phase 2 and 3 for that matter will likely not occur. And then we also need to have what's called executive buy-in. Executive buy-in is where the C-level executives in the organization will basically provide approval for this specific project, for this AI strategy. And usually this executive buy-in is what actually is going to tie the funding together as well. Once we have everything in place from putting together a business plan, we then need to start the execution process in phase 2. That is where we need to put together a data strategy. Now, a data strategy is going to entail collecting everything we need to actually be able to put together an AI system. That may very well be getting an inventory of what we have, identifying runtime languages or programming languages, determining the number of users. Basically, it's collecting all the needed data that we have already in the organization and putting it together in a manner that we're going to be able to identify what has to be done. This is really important for the business plan. Then we have auditing. This is where we're going to go through and really identify, do we have everything we need? Are we ready to go? Yes or no? Then we have the people and tech. So this is where we need our stakeholders in place. We need to have our development team. We need to have any other vendors we may have involved, whatever that is. So if you're deploying this on AWS, you may want to have your AWS representatives working with you, your systems engineer, the technical lead, whoever that may be. And then once you're at that point of readiness, you then can start getting ready for implementation. This is when you have everything in place. You have project plan in place as well, and you're pretty much good to go. The next thing that happens is you would then have everything completed, and then you would then be able to support it. It would be in operation. You'd have reporting set up, support, and then training as well for the users. So when we develop an AI strategy, there's really a multitude of different approaches we could use, but in general, we want to have several phases of it to really be able to identify first what we need, where are we right now, and then when we go to phase 2, how are we going to get there? What do we have to do to get there? And then phase 3 is when we reach our goals effectively as well. So basically, our goals are then, of course, realized once we're at phase 3. With that said, putting together your AI strategy will take some work, will take some planning, and will generally take a good amount of stakeholders in your organization to really help you put everything together. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about some of the main concerns when we are looking for AI tools. So if we're looking for an AI tool, we're going to be really looking for software. Because of that, software, of course, is going to have a lot of specific requirements that we have to address to confirm, does it meet our needs? Will it integrate? Will it provide a level of value that our organization really needs? So we want to define our requirements, our objectives, really for needing this tool in the first place. We also want to look at, did we perform an assessment to determine, did we really need this level of software for our situation? Now, when we consider a tool, that tool can be software that is as simple as installing a Google Chrome extension, or it could be as complex as literally installing a full-blown server loaded with all of these different software programs, an operating system, APIs, you name it, right? So there's a lot of things that we could really look at from an AI perspective, and this is true with software as well. So we want to look at what is available for tools and technologies, determine scalability and integration as well. Now, the scalability will be different, of course, based on, is it a single user or is the software going to be multi-user as well? API capabilities, also the programming language could be a big deal as well. We want to look at, is the ease of use there or is it not? We want to look at for support as well. Is the vendor going to support us the way we need it? We want to look at how has other customers reviewed this software, and is it going to provide value to our organization, and can we apply some of those reviews to our situation? For example, if we're looking at reviews and it's another, let's say, social media organization, and we're a social media organization, maybe we could figure out, does this software make sense from a value perspective? We want to conduct a pilot to determine if it works. We want to look at proof of concepts as well. We also want to consider ethical and legal implications as well. If we implement this software, can we deploy it all over the world, or is it only in certain geographies, certain countries, certain states, right? These are things we have to look at. For example, at the time of writing the course, ChatGPT is only available pretty much in the United States and Canada, and I believe a few other countries. However, there's a lot of challenges with privacy, and this is true with Google Bard as well. So because of that, we need to realize, are we going to be able to use this software tool to its fullest use case, or is there some limitations we need to be aware of? Now, this can be not only for legal implications, but also technical as well. We need to look at training and updates. Software, when we deploy it, we need to train people on it, but we have to maintain it daily as well. So whether it's a Chrome extension or it's going to be, again, a full software suite with licensing involved, and seats is another term we would use in the software industry as well. So because of that, we need to look at a lot of different variables. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's go to a demonstration with a social media tool that is AI-based called hacksocial.ai. Let's go to the demonstration. I'm over here at the Hack Social webpage. Now, Hack Social is a Chrome extension. It's based on GPT-4 technology. It's AI-assisted replies for social media, pretty much in a nutshell. So you can use it on LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, and I believe as well YouTube and a few others. Now, the way this works is you go over here to Chrome extension. So it's a Chrome extension. So be aware of that. That's the only thing it supports right now. And you go over here to install. Now, I already have it installed, so I won't install it again. But what I want to do is go back over here, and I want to just show you how you can configure your description of your company. Now, something like this was really meant for a small business, marketing, to basically create a reply to a post and drive traffic to your website, to your profile. So I put in my company name and company description, and that was, again, fairly simple to do. Now, you probably want a little bit better description, but as a demo, this is just a short little explanation on how it works. So what I want to do now is let's go to LinkedIn. Okay, so on LinkedIn, you can see here that we have the generate content. What I could do here is I could reply to this post in any number of ways. I could go general agreement, and it'll go ahead and bring up that reply, and it'll just provide insight. And then it puts in a plug, and this is where you want to really pay attention, because sometimes this makes sense, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And I think a lot of it is based on the description that you put in as well and how you write it. But it puts in a plug into the reply about your business. Now, one more thing is if you don't want to use this for your business, you could just go over here and just remove all this, and it won't insert anything. What I want to do, though, is before I reply to a post, I want to go to an influencer. So I'm going to go ahead and select Patrick. So Patrick Bet David is pretty well known, right? He's all over YouTube and LinkedIn and other media outlets. He is known for starting the PHP agency and also Valuetainment, I think it's called, or Value Entertainment. So he's got a wide following. He's got millions of followers between all the media outlets for sure. And he likes to pump out what I call happy posts or inspirational posts. So these posts are meant to get you excited to invest in yourself, to go out there, work harder, believe in yourself. And again, they're great posts. He does a really good job, and he's absolutely amazing at it. And so what I want to do in this case is I want to reply to this post. And instead of me thinking about what to write, I could just go over here to the Hack Social icon and go and select either inspirational or general agreement probably would be appropriate, or polite disagreement. Something like this, you don't want to reply funny or put in a poem. I'm still not sure why people want to put in poems, but it's there. Or you could ask a question. So I'm going to go general agreement. So you can see here, it is giving me a reply. And so what you want to do is you go over here and copy this. And you can see here, it says, absolutely, conversations can be incredibly powerful and enlightening. Okay, editor. And you can see here, absolutely, conversations can be incredibly powerful and enlightening. It would be interesting to see a representative from Tech Commanders on Valuetainment considering their leading role in IT training and certification. Their insights can be deeply valuable. All right, so if that's not a pump-up reply, I don't know what is. So anyways, it's a good reply. I would probably want to change this a little bit. But in this case, I just want to reply just as an example with just that. I'm not logged in as my company, so I'm not going to try to push company stuff. I could swap over if I want, but in this case, I'm just going to go post. So again, you can see there, I made that reply, simple as pie. So with that said, that is Hack Social. So let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to go into a demonstration with ChatGPT, and I'm going to walk you through some of the more common tasks that you could use ChatGPT for to increase the efficiency, the value, or even just the creativity of your business. Let's go to the demonstration. Let's get started having ChatGPT put together some instructions for us. Now, these instructions could be anything from simple items like a recipe to more complex business plans for a new business. Or we could even look at putting together a cover letter. Or we could also look at putting together instructions for how to build a house, hiring a contractor, things to look for. Whatever we're looking for, ChatGPT could probably put it together for you. Now, what I like to do is specify to ChatGPT the type of business and the name of the business and where I want to start it. So with ChatGPT, I could have it create business plans. And as with any other instructions, I could have it as specific or unspecific as possible. So I'm going to be a little specific in the sense that I wanted to create a business plan for a cookie shop in a mall food court called My Cookie Place. So it'll go ahead and generate the executive summary. It gives us the tagline. It gives us the name of the business, any kind of financial projections. And one thing to be aware of is we could also specify detailed product lines or organizational management. I could say, for example, I'm going to put that in again, and I'm going to say have the CEO as, let's say, just Joe Holberg, okay, very quickly. And you can see here that it'll go ahead and put that together. And it has me named right there in the leadership. So pretty cool. And so you can see, again, to generate a business plan is fairly straightforward. Now, in reality, is this going to be enough for you to go out and get funding or something? Probably not, from my experience, but it gives you a really good start. And you go over here and select Continue Generating, because it's not really done yet. And now it's done. All right, so it's saying that it's a general outline, and you really should cater this to your specific market. So now what I could do is also customize this to a specific city or county. So what I want to do now is just put in the city. So now you can see that I'm going to start a cookie shop in a mall food court in Jacksonville, Florida, called My Cookie Place, and I'm the CEO. Now, I might want to be even more specific and say Duval County, which is the county for Jacksonville, and go ahead and hit enter. And let's see what it comes up with for any little additional items. Now again, I wasn't expecting this to be too detailed, because the goal of ChatGPT is to more or less give you a template than to put together a real business plan. And you can see here that it does, I think up here, specify the city and all that, so that's good. And I don't see the county listed, interestingly enough. So one thing to just be aware of, again, with putting together really technical documents, this is probably not going to be the platform you want to use for that. There's, again, a use case for having attorneys to do this stuff, or going online to the Small Business Administration or whoever you may use. But just as an example, right? Pretty cool. Now, the last set of instructions I want ChatGPT to put together in this demonstration is to create a hiring process for a new employee in Jacksonville, Florida. And I want ChatGPT to specify as well all the required payroll and legal documents I need to do that. So let's see how this works. So what I'm going to do is paste in simple instructions first before I really specify more detail. So I want a hiring process for onboarding new employees to my company, Tech Commanders, in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm also, as stated, going to specify specific processes and documents. Okay, let's see what it does. Okay, well, interesting. It actually has the steps at a high level. Looks pretty good. Okay, well, that was a little better than what I was expecting. And it does specify, as an example, how to post. Now, again, not super detailed. And again, as I previously stated, if I want to specify specifically how to post a job on LinkedIn as part of the process, I could request that. If I want to specify the job offer of, like, let's say $75,000 a year for a content developer, I could do that as well. But with that said, right, there's just so many things that you could go ahead and put together. It even has an NDA agreement, has orientation and training, the handbook, right? So pretty cool. So as you see, the power of ChatGPT is definitely there to get you started with whatever you're looking for when it comes to creating, for example, business documents, recipes. You can also go here and ask it to put together a cover letter, a resume, all of these things, and it will prompt you as well to add to what else you may be looking for. Welcome to Module 3. In this module, we're going to focus on marketing and sales and how these types of businesses can really gain value specifically with AI tools. So we're going to talk about how AI can enable marketing and sales efforts. We'll get into exploring AI-driven customer insights and targeting. I'll dive into, at a high level, some of the AI sales tools that are popular on the market at the time of writing the course. We'll also talk about how you can optimize your marketing and sales with the proper strategies, of course, with AI. Then I'll go into a demonstration of a tool called Reggie AI and specifically focused on sales workflows. We have a lot to cover in this module, so let's go ahead and continue on to the first lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about how AI can help you with sales and marketing. No question, when it comes to organizations that are sales driven, they definitely need to find new ways to bring in revenue, but also new ways to maintain the current revenue. And because of that, AI has really taken storm and has really provided organizations a lot of various tools that they could employ in their organizations. Now, when it comes to AI with the focus on marketing and sales, we really should consider that marketing is going to be looking more or less for understanding what type of markets they should get into, what is their ideal customer, trying to find the right type of ad to use. And it's really about trying to portray the organization in a positive manner that the customers want to come to your business, basically, to spend money. Sales, on the other hand, is really going to be more focused on trying to get customers in the door or on the website and to try to turn them over from basically a potential client or customer to an actual customer spending money. And these organizations, even though they work together in a lot of cases, will likely use different tools in most cases when it comes to AI. So we want to think about AI as providing the option for advanced data options, enrichment, visualization, also to insights from a perspective of having it proactive and not having it prompted. One of the best ways for AI to provide value to organizations is to use a sales tool that provides a dashboard that automatically populates that dashboard with the data that the organization wants to see to make a decision quickly. When it comes to conversational intelligence, AI tools should be able to provide value pretty easily. The reality is that this is an area of AI that is pretty mature. So whether you have a website that's e-commerce or you have an internal human resources help desk, this is an area that AI provides really immediate value around. Another area is sales enablement. This is a really important area for a lot of companies because sales really drives revenue, and they're always looking for ways to improve their return on investment and to create value for the customer. When it comes to pipeline management and forecasting, again, sales organizations look for this. They need to understand what exactly would be the number of customers in line, orders in queue, what is the level of interest in a service, let's say, or a specific product. They're really looking for getting insight, but also not only getting insight, but using that insight in a manner that can not only be historical, but also predictive. When it comes to sales engagement, being able to engage with the prospective customer and not only provide the customer what they need, but also provide them additional value that they may not be aware of to solve a problem or to actually enable the customer to save money or to also provide the customer value in other forms, such as through the use of a support service that is interactive or an order tracking system that is interactive or proactive is another way to look at it. Now, there's certainly a number of other ways that sales and marketing could use AI. And with that said, we want to consider too that the tools that the organization uses can enable a lot of the value that these tools are going to provide the organization, but also the customer. So if it's a Chrome widget using, for example, Hack Social, then that's going to provide a different result than the company investing in an AI suite of tools from IBM that could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So again, it's all about what you want to get and what the company wants to pay for as well. But in reality, AI tools can help level the playing field for a sales organization, a marketing organization. And with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about how AI can help with understanding your customer. When it comes to AI, remember AI is really focused on performing tasks that are really automated and driven by how AI is actually programmed by humans. However, it is also important to consider that AI can collect data and can be integrated into any number of different applications and services. Now, when it comes to customer insight, it can provide us solid insight into the type of customer that is, as an example, on our website. It can also provide us insight into what the customer is looking for, how they're searching for something, how they pay for something even. It's really useful, especially for predictive analytics. There's a lot of great sales tools out there that can be used, and I'll talk about a few of these coming up in the next lesson, that can be used to provide a sales-driven organization or marketing organization as well into how the customer will likely behave if we make changes, let's say, to a product or even a price change or even a website change like the look and feel. A lot of things can be used here to determine how well a product or solution or service will actually perform. Recommender systems, so these are AI systems that are used for e-commerce typically to help the customer decide on what product they should buy, or what we are probably more than familiar with is if we go to Amazon.com where we add something to our carts, you'll see that before we add it to the cart, usually Amazon likes to pop up 2 or 3 additional items that will state something like, oh, customers that bought this usually will add this or buy this with the product. So it's basically prompting you to spend more money and giving you insight into, again, what other customers may be actually adding to their carts when they buy that product. Sentiment analysis. This is where AI can be used to sample how customers feel or how customers actually, a great example is how they traverse your website. Like maybe they'll react to a certain blog post. On the other hand, maybe a comment might actually trigger more activity. These are things that can be used with applications that employ, for example, AI. When it comes to real-time customer insights, this is another great capability that a lot of AI-driven tools can provide. Lastly, ethical considerations. Now, this is more or less something not so much a feature or a capability, but it's something I wanted to talk about briefly because it's important to realize that when it comes to using AI, we need to realize that AI is what? It is a software program that was really developed by humans, and therefore all the inputs are from humans, and therefore could be biased. Now, this, again, is not a major concern in a lot of cases, but we want to be aware that when we deploy AI software, these are things we want to look at, and especially if we're looking to target certain customer segments, we don't want to alienate customers. We don't also want to lose out on a segment of customers as well. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about AI sales tools. Now, chances are, if you're in sales or you work for a sales-driven organization, that you're using a wide amount of different tools for different purposes. Now, some of these tools encompass a lot of different requirements, everything from managing a contact center to procuring items to actually following up with customers to actually identifying leads to creating sales funnels, right? There's a lot there. But with that said, I wanted to talk about a few of these tools to give you an idea of what you could do with them. And there's also two. For every one listed here, there's probably about 8 to 10 competitors, if not more in some cases, for these tools. So just be aware that you want to do your research before you go out and use any of these tools. There's a lot there and a lot to learn. Some are free, some are going to be paid subscription, and again, the pricing model will be different depending on the use case that you have. So let's go now get started with talking about a few of these tools. Tavis is an interesting tool, especially if you have sales pipelines and you want to be able to personalize a response to your prospects. As an example, let's say a customer views your website, fills out the form, and wants to find out more about a product or a service or a course or whatever that may be. What you could do is personalize a response with a video. That video can say, "Hello, Shirley. How are you today? We saw that you viewed our website and was inquiring about this specific product. This product can really help you in a number of different ways." And in a nutshell, you can personalize that video via AI in any number of ways. Now, another thing that it can do as well is not only personalize videos, but also provide you additional variables you could add in there, such as links or such as documents, also too phone numbers, a lot of cool things. You could also set up what's called a customized call, I believe is the term they use, where you could have the customer click on the link and go directly to your Calendly link and set up a one-to-one call. This is great for coaches as an example. So API-driven, of course, you could use the API with any number of configurations. So that's really the first tool I want to talk about. Again, the tool is called Tavis. The next tool I want to talk about is Drift. This is a widely used tool, especially in the SMB market, and it's really great for businesses that need to have frontline sales support that is backed up by AI. It's really about increasing your sales productivity. It's really about being able to process a bunch of requests without having that additional headcount. It allows you to connect with your customers. You also have the ability to create bots and address specific web pages directly and very specifically. So you could have 10 different pages and 10 different bots to address concerns for each page. And as far as integrations, it certainly integrates with Salesforce and a number of other potential CRM apps as well. Now, the next tool I want to talk about is Drift. This is an awesome tool for small and mid-sized business. It's widely used and is very popular. What this does is it allows the small business, as an example, to have a frontline sales team that's automated through AI. It allows everything from chatbots to be set up, customization, and another thing that it does as well is allows you to connect with your customers in a number of different ways. It could be via chat, it could be via calendar links, phone call setup, whatever you want to use. I think Zoom as an example, WebEx, right? So a number of different ways. And it allows your sales team to really engage with the customer directly and in a customized manner. So Drift is widely used. So take a look at that. And they have several plans as well. Once again, it's really meant for that small business and maybe mid-sized business as well. The last tool I just want to Now the last tool I want to touch on is called Clary. This is a sales enablement platform. And again, this is meant for your sales teams to be able to not only determine where they are in the sales cycle, but forecasting as well. It allows you to determine targets based on like the quarter that you're in, allows your sales team as well to understand how well the revenue is. Also, too, it looks at what is called risk management in the sense of the deal. So you could have it tied in to a number of different systems like credit risk. Let's say you have a $200,000 deal for a SaaS solution that you're selling, and are you concerned whether or not that customer is going to be able to pay you for that service, as an example? So there's risk management in there, and it also looks at, again, at revenue forecasting as well. So it gives you that accurate view of your health of your sales cycle. With that said, there's a number of other tools, though, like Champify, which is a great solution as well. It's more or less for really putting together those relationships. And again, I won't go through really any more just for time purposes, but check out each of those. Those are probably the most common sales tools on the market that are AI driven, but there's a ton more. So take your time, see what's out there. A lot of great things you can really deploy immediately in your business. Let's move on to the next lesson. Optimize marketing and sales strategies. Now, when it comes to marketing and sales strategies, a lot of it comes down to our digital marketing. And because of that, AI really can play a huge role into what our organization can really amplify in the sense of scaling up tools in this area, specifically with AI. Now, I wanted to walk through a strategy just as an example to give you an idea of some of the tools you could use to address specific areas around digital marketing. Now, when it comes to what we can do, the first thing we want to always consider is understand what type of buyer we're really targeting. And this is where we want to put together a market copy, as it would be called in digital marketing. And a great tool for that is called Jasper AI. Now, we also want to be able to leverage data and analytics, look at campaigns. Some tools that can help with that would be called Optimove, and another one is 7sense. Now, what about SEO? Now, there's a lot of different approaches to SEO, a lot of great tools that are not AI-based, but there's also AI-based tools as well. Now, when it comes to SEO, that could be looking at how we handle hashtags, what are our keywords, for example, captions on our blog posts, just as an example. Now, Growth Bar is a great tool, and Flick AI is another popular tool out there that can help with some of these areas. And also, just be aware, by no means are these exclusive. There's probably, for every tool here, there's probably 5 others that can help in certain areas as well. So just be aware of that. Okay, now what about if we want to establish ourselves, our company, as a leader in a certain area? Well, Brand24, Amplify are 2 great examples of how we could really capture the sentiment, but also determine, are we really as an organization, the company that customers will go to in a certain area or a certain expertise, right? So these are great tools to look at. We want to look at the wide variety of tools as well. Maybe we don't need to have a specialized tool. Maybe we could use a CRM solution that might address some of these fairly well. We might want to look at sales or customer service or data, just to name a few. So we want to look at different types of tools, of course. Now, what about if we are more niche focused in social media? Hack Social is a great tool that can help with assembling a response to social media posts, to create new titles, to create content, to help us get an idea of what we need. ChatGPT is another tool we could use as well that can help with that. Now, what about brand language optimization tools? Now, when it comes to brand language, what that really is sort of pointing out or addressing is how our brand is actually going to be put out to the public in the best light. And so Phrasee is a great tool to help with that. In a nutshell, remember, if we want to optimize our marketing and sales, we need a strategy to address that. And digital marketing is really the main area to do that nowadays. With that said, it's important to realize there's a wealth of different tools out there that we could use to really enable our organization to step up its game with marketing and sales. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's proceed to a demonstration about a sales tool that is AI focused called Reggie AI that will provide sales teams some great capabilities for landing new customers and maintaining their customer base. Let's go to the demonstration. I'm over here at Reggie.ai. This is a sales enablement platform that's AI driven, and it has a ton of capabilities. So if you have a sales team or you're, let's say, a solopreneur or a small business, they have some great tools that you could use for dealing with social media, for creating blog posts, for also driving revenue, so following up sort of as a contact center. And to get started, they have a free extension that you could download. So you download the free extension here from Chrome. And I already have it installed, so I won't install it again. So what I want to do, though, is go over here, and this will bring me to the extension. And I go over here to look at my analytics, which is the dashboard. Now, I can go check all of my stats over here, and I also have the ability to create emails. So, for example, if you have sales funnels and you want to be able to write a reply for those, this is a great way for you to really follow up with leads, to be able to return emails, and to create basically stages of your sales cycle. Now, there is an AI toolkit here, and you could reply here from social posts as an example. And what I could do in this case, I'm going to go select URL. So what I want to do is I'm going to just use my website as an example, put in the URL, and I'm going to select probably 2 in this case. So when it says number of outputs per URL, I can have it give me like 4 or 5 different versions if I want. As far as hashtags, I'm going to enter AI. I'm going to enter blockchain. I'm going to also just spell out automated intelligence as well. And then optional. So I'm going to put in my hashtag as well. Okay, now the output size can be small, medium, or large. I believe it's like 250 words, 500 or 1,000 or something of that nature. That's how they correlate like the output size. So now what I want to do is just go generate content. Then you'll see over here, it'll pop up with the results here in about maybe 10 seconds or less, possibly. Okay, so you could see that it has created the article. And you see here there's social copy number 1, social copy number 2. So it gives me different copies that I could add. So over here, it adds the hashtags that go along with it. And it also looks at my website and found a few others it wanted to add as well. Then what I can do is take this, if I want, copy it and save it. And what I could do is basically save it locally and then have my, for example, social media manager post this on the website or post it on LinkedIn. So this is a really cool tool that you could use. Now, as far as some other tools, I could go over here and generate a blog post as well. Now also too, if we go over here and go to inbound and outbound, this is a way you could select the type of campaign that you want to create. So if you want to create an intent campaign, more of an outbound, general, automated, sped up, these are basically terms that are used in sales. So you go over here and select like the general outbound, and it gives you the steps that are involved, tells you how you should follow up, how it could work out and stuff like that. Go next. You could also import specific information about a product or service from your website. And then you just go through here and create all of the different requirements like a persona, a pain point. To do this takes a little bit of time. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Welcome to Module 4. In this module, we want to focus on human resources and how AI can be applied to specific use cases in that area of interest. When it comes to the lessons, we're going to talk about talent acquisition and recruitment. We're going to get into how AI can be applied to performance management. We'll also proceed and talk about employee engagement. And then I'm going to wrap up the module with a whiteboard discussion. This whiteboard discussion, we're going to talk about how resume filtering works on most of the large job sites that you may have been to before. And I'll give you a scenario of how a resume is submitted and how AI is used to determine how well your resume is really a fit for a specific role or that organization. We have a lot to cover, so let's proceed to the first lesson in the module. In this lesson, let's talk about how AI is being applied to human resources, recruiting, and also talent acquisition. Now, when it comes to AI and HR, I was very surprised by the number of applications on the market. These applications ranged from everything from resume parsing to actually setting up video calls with potential candidates to background checks, so many AI-based applications out there. So when it comes to human resources, this is a widely used area with AI. And one of the things, too, that I found interesting was that it could also set up, for example, interviews and grade those interviews by video. So what will happen is you do an interview by, let's say, Zoom or something, and that video can be graded by the HR system for bias. So the answers that are given can be graded by their risk management system. Very interesting. I had no idea. But again, there's a lot of tools out there for HR. So it's going to take you some time to really figure out what you really need. Now, some of these tools are widely used. Some of them are meant for small business. Some of them are really just meant for recruiting firms to find talent, to parse resumes, to rank potential candidates. That's what it's really for. But some of the more popular ones that seem to be showing up are listed here. Some of these are free. Some of these have also free and paid tiers. Some are basically enterprise as well, like Skill8. And with that said, I won't go through these just because for time purposes, and these vary quite a bit. But you'll find that some of these are really powerful. They have so many features. They have a lot of great AI-based risk management tools integrated in them as well. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about how human resources can actually employ AI to ensure that employees are performing as expected. Now, when it comes to human resources, there's a wealth of different AI tools on the market, no question about it. The challenge, though, is really understanding what you really need and what you're willing to pay for and integrate into your organization. However, let's say you are a fairly large human resources organization. Let's say you have at least 500 employees. Well, you may need a way to track how those employees are performing, who is doing their job, and maybe who isn't doing their job to satisfaction. So these tools can help you understand how the employee is performing and then any feedback as well collected from management. We could also use it to grade employees based on management, the stakeholders they work for as well, and then also too things that they complete in their profile, areas like that. We could look at goals. How well does the employee actually accomplish the goal? And that goal could be to complete a certification, or it could be to complete a job on time. Whatever that is, we want to keep track of it. Now, we could also use it for automating performance reviews and evaluations. We could also look at it from a perspective of how AI can not only enhance performance management, but also how it can identify areas of improvement. That could be skill gaps, just as an example, especially when you have hundreds of employees or more. This can be time-consuming, I would expect, as a human resources professional. Another area, too, is when we consider automating performance reviews, one of the things that comes up with a lot of these applications is that they have the ability to collect information from a number of different sources. For example, how they travel, how long it takes them to travel to certain locations. Let's say you have a group of potential sales teams, let's say, and you want to understand how well they utilize their time. This is a great way to do that. It also provides real-time analysis of how well your team members are performing. So this is a really big deal as well when you get larger, I would imagine. Another thing, too, that can come up is identifying who is completing like assigned learning, who's taken mandatory training. Also, too, another thing you can look at is bias. This is another thing that keeps coming up with AI as well with human resources. So we can look at, for example, how employees address each other in emails. We can look at how they talk in video calls. There's a lot of things they could look at. Now, there's a number of other things they could look at, from succession planning. Let's say you have executives identifying who might be the right internal employee that could take over for the time being until an external candidate could be found. Also, too, looking at predictive analytics, identifying who might be the A players. I could see how this would be really used, especially in a sales organization, to determine what sales leader might be promoted or what sales leader might hit their quota. These are things that AI tools are already set up to do. And with that said, it's important to realize that they're very powerful. So look at these in more detail if this is of interest. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about how AI could be leveraged by HR to improve employee engagement. There's no question HR is looking for ways to have employees work together more, collaborate, become team members. And AI can be used in a number of different ways. So one of the things that a lot of the HR tools have is the ability to send surveys. There's a survey called a pulse survey that could be used. It could be anonymous as well. So it allows employees to give feedback on how well the company is doing. This is a very common way. The reason that they want to send a survey in a lot of cases is that once the data is collected, and this is really useful, especially when you get into the larger companies, to identify what employees really want, what kind of a workplace they like, how they view the management team, how do they view the workplace ethics, or how do they view the learning opportunities, right? These are things that the AI systems can analyze and graph out and provide insight into how things could even be improved. So the goal of using AI for employee engagement is to improve the work culture, to also personalize learning. Very simple to use this for learning in a lot of cases. And what is nice too is with the personalization, for example, in Workday, this is really simple to do, especially you tie it into third-party sites like Udemy for Business, Go1, or any other third-party site that is going to be able to be integrated into that HR platform. So when it comes to learning and development, being able to customize that for the employee and gain insight from the data is really important. When it comes to collaboration, HR really wants to find different ways to get employees to work together. And they want to collect the data to identify ways to do that, to get the feel of the employee environment. One thing that a lot of these tools can do, such as Lena, I believe, is one of those AI tools that can do that, is you could integrate with your pulse surveys, but also integrate with like your company social media application platform. One is, for example, I think called Yammer. Slack is another one that could be used. Google Sheets, you name it. There's a lot of different tools that these AI platforms can actually integrate with and collect the data, analyze the data, and provide reports on, for example, what are the subjects employees are actually asking about. Another capability would be around analytics, how data is gathered and the value created from those analytics. And those analytics, of course, can be used for historical data, but also for predictive analytics as well. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's proceed to the whiteboard and discuss how resume filtering works, specifically with AI. Let's go to the whiteboard. Chances are we've had to submit our resume online to any number of different job sites, companies, recruiting firms, even LinkedIn. Now, with that said, it goes through a very specific process, and that process can certainly vary by different websites, by different applications that are used, etc. Now, in this scenario, let's just say I have Sally here and I have John here. Now, both Sally and John want to apply for a job. They see this really cool job on this website, so they submit it to the company website, and when they submit it, they get back basically an acknowledgement. That acknowledgement is just saying, we received your resume, thank you so much for applying, etc. Now, what happens right about here is that typically that resume is actually going to be stored somewhere in a data structure or a database. Now, whatever that is, it could be a little bit depending. It could be temporary storage, it could be permanent. The way this could be structured could be many-fold. But in general, let's say that it's going to be stored in a data pool until it's actually going to be parsed by the AI system. Now, before we go through the remaining steps, let's talk about a few things. Now, parsing is the term that's used for filtering. So when we submit a resume, that resume needs to be filtered, aka parsed. It needs to be looked at, taken apart, reviewed, and scored as well. Now, there's really 5 steps that occur in parsing, and we have the steps that are actually not as simple as it sounds. It's really complex in a lot of cases, but in general, what happens is that the data first has to be prepared. It has to be typically ingested into a data lake or some form of a database to at least be prepared so that the resume can basically have the data extracted. So extraction is basically looking for information that could be, keywords, could be just contact information, job titles, etc. So that's really the next step at a high level. Then we have entity recognition. This is really where the resume is actually going to be acknowledged and actually start forming basically a readable, approach is probably the non-technical term I want to use, to actually get that resume so that it can actually be parsed. And then information is going to be extracted, and then it's structured in a manner that AI is going to use, that the system is going to use basically, so that it can be ranked. Now, ranked is a way to score the resume, and that scoring can actually occur in any number of ways, and there's any number of variables that can be looked for. Now, I did want to mention that with parsing, though, there's 3 main algorithms, and there's a few more, but these are the main ones. We have the keyword algorithm, grammar, and then statistical. Keyword is exactly what it sounds like. The algorithm is looking for what? The keywords. So if you submit your resume for blockchain architect, it's looking for that. It's going to score you based on that. Grammar is going to look for phrases and other areas. An example might be sales leader in IT, or Unix administrator, or accounting professional with 20 years experience, right? So those are grammar. These are phrases is another way to look at it. Now, statistical could be any number of forms of the previous, but generally statistical is looking at when you submit your resume, how likely that resume would fit the role, and is looking for previous roles, like were you in a role 2 years, 4 years, 7 years, And statistical is sort of complex. There's a lot there. But in general, it's looking for a number of different things, not just the keyword or phrases. Okay, so we know that there's different parsing algorithms. Now, that resume, as it goes through the AI system, needs to be scored. It has to be ranked. So Sally's resume goes all the way through. And Sally gets a score based on, let's say, the keywords and grammar, experience. She even has her resume formatted right. Another thing, too, with statistical, I should say, or clarity, is that we could use statistical to also grade the resume based on how well the resume has been formatted. Do you have all the expected lines in the resume, like contact information? Do you have a GitHub link, right? These are things that the algorithm could actually look for and grade you on or score on. So we could look for scoring any number of ways, and this is really typically chosen in the application by typically, let's say, the recruiting firm or the company HR. They could choose, we want to have someone that has 8 out of 10 keywords. So they may be graded, let's say, 80% in this case, forgive the writing, on keywords. And then grammar, experience, formatting, clarity, everything, etc., right? So there's a number of things that could go into the scoring. So let's just say Sally, she does amazing. Her score is like 80%. And so the company has decided that they're only going to shortlist people that have basically a score of 80% or 75%, whatever that's set at. And again, every system can have a whole different approach to how it's graded, how the resume gets forwarded to recruiting, the manager, right? A lot of things can be different, but in general, they all use a similar high-level approach. So the next thing that happens is her resume goes to the shortlist. That shortlist is then typically forwarded to the hiring manager, recruiter, whoever is going to be the first contact for the interviewee. However, Johnny's resume just didn't make muster. Redlining is a way to sort of basically say this resume isn't any good. We don't want to interview this person. They don't qualify. They didn't score well. That's redlining. And what happens with redlining, typically you'll get that nice email like 3 months after you applied for a job that says, "Dear Joe, thank you for applying for the role of Senior Solutions Architect, and we really think you're a great potential fit. You had great experience or whatever, but we chose not to pursue you," however it's worded, right? So we've all gotten those emails. So that's really the two processes that would occur. So you get that rejection letter if you're redlined, but if you're shortlisted, then you'll get contacted by whoever it is. Typically, it could be email, it could be phone as well. Every company works it differently. So at a high level, that's how resume parsing works. Those are the steps. That's the algorithm options and the scoring as well. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Welcome to Module 5. In Module 5, we want to focus on supply chains. When it comes to supply chains, we want to be aware that supply chains are really going to entail everything from purchasing products to also selling and servicing products as well in a lot of different organizations. So from a lesson perspective, we want to understand how AI can be used to manage our supply chain. We also want to understand how predictive maintenance and quality control can be applied using AI. Lastly, we want to be able to use AI to optimize our supply chain and look at some of the strategies we could use to accomplish that. We have a lot to learn in this module, so let's proceed on to the first lesson of the module. In this lesson, let's talk about how AI can be enabled in your environment to help bring value and improve your logistics, your operations as well. Now, AI is widely used in this sector as well, and there's a lot of great tools that can bring together data management, understanding what you have, and then look at what you have and then help you decide what you may need. So that's more for inventory management. But also, too, that data, when it's collected, can be graphed, can be reported upon. Now, one of the main value points of AI is that it can help you increase efficiency. If you're not requiring to have someone manually approve something, or you're not requiring someone to order a part, and this can be done by AI, this can increase a lot of value as well as efficiency of your organization and how it all works. One of the things, too, is around reconfiguration. It can provide insight into things that may not be working the way that you would expect, and can provide insight in how the supply chain may be broken. As an example, if you have let's say a farm-to-table supply chain, and you realize that the bottleneck is not the farm to the first shipper or the second shipper, but more or less getting through customs, that may not be something you could directly solve, but it could be a result of how long it takes to get through customs for, let's say, this produce. And this could be applied as well for parts, like for a car, or it could be computer screens, whatever that may be. But with that said, just be aware that that data could be collected and analyzed, and that supply chain, a bottleneck may be found, and perhaps a solution could be found by the software. And lastly, I think it's important too to understand how capacity and demand forecasting could be looked at, and that could also help as well with inventory management, and of course with reducing costs as well. So when we look at logistics, I think it's important to look at an example of how AI is being applied. Now, there's an article linked there for you on supplychainbrain.com. They go through how AI is being utilized in the industry. They provide some insight as well. But with that said, I wanted to just provide some focus on understanding that AI is certainly applied in logistics. There's a lot of great applications out there that you may want to look at, not only just for ordering parts, but also for understanding how customers are supported. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about how AI can be applied for maintenance and quality control concerns. Depending on your business and what industry you're in, you may have a lot of different data points you have to monitor. Let's say, as an example, you have a manufacturing company and you have a workflow and you want to collect data points on how hot the equipment is, the temperature, how many hours is it used for. Let's say also, too, you want to keep track of the number of widgets it makes. We could use AI in that process to look at all of those data points. So an AI solution can analyze these points and determine what the life cycle is, and then alert you if there's a problem. So it could be proactive, but also reactive as well, depending on how you want to set it up. This is called predictive maintenance. Now, what are the benefits of using predictive maintenance with an AI system? Well, this could be everything from increased uptime, cost savings, improved efficiency, and also extended equipment lifespans as well. As far as key benefits of applying AI to quality control, we could get some of the same benefits, but also some additional ones as well. We could look for not only efficiency and cost savings, but we look for accuracy in the processes that we have, the workflows. We look at data a number of different ways, but it is important to realize that quality control could also imply not only hardware widgets, but also software as well. So we could definitely apply that in a number of different forms. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about optimizing your strategy for logistics and supply chains. When it comes to the supply chain strategy, one of the areas that seems to come up quite a bit is really understanding how you collect your data and then how you need to analyze your data. The challenge around data in supply chains is that they can be disparate and they can be on many different protocols. And so collecting that data, aggregating that data can be a challenge. But there's a lot of great programs out there that enable you to either customize or integrate with various APIs. When it comes to optimizing, you want to definitely consider demand forecasting, inventory management, look at route optimization of your supply chain, look at your warehouse management. Another thing, too, that seems to come up in a lot of articles is dealing with suppliers. How do you deal with a supplier that is going to be across the world and speaks a different language? And then how do you get them to send you the right data that you could actually ingest into your supply chain management systems to be able to determine, is this actually what we need? Are the specs correct? Logistics tracking makes sense, right? These are things you want to look at. Quality control, risk management as well. Now, as far as some of the logistics software and services out there that are AI focused, CCASA is one of the well-known protocols or solutions, I should say, that are out there. Logility, SAP, Oracle, just to name a few. Then AWS has what is called AWS Supply Chain. And in the graphic there, you can actually collect data from numerous sources and put together a number of different services and make your own customized AI supply chain with the AWS supply chain service. With that said, we need to understand that this is a very complex area of AI because of the disparate services, because of the distance, because of the different protocols as well. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Welcome to Module 6. In this module, we're going to focus on finance and accounting and how AI can be applied to that area of focus. When it comes to the lessons, we're going to talk about how AI can be used to streamline finance and accounting processes. We'll then talk about how AI can be used for fraud detection. We'll then discuss some of the popular personal finance applications that are AI-driven. I'll then talk about how our strategies from a business perspective can also be applied as well with the right tools. Then we'll go ahead and wrap up the module with a demonstration about how we could use Microsoft Bing to actually provide insight around personal finance. We have a lot to cover in this module, so let's proceed to the first lesson in the module. In this lesson, let's talk about how AI has been applied in the world of accounting and finance. Now, AI is certainly nothing new in the world of finance as well as accounting as well, and it's been in use for many, many decades. The thing that has changed and evolved has been how it's been applied and the types of AI that has been applied as well. So we're seeing AI being applied in data entry. As an example, if you deposit your check at the bank, that check does not actually get touched by a human after you submit it to the bank. It goes through all these processes, gets scanned, gets analyzed, goes through fraud detection and all of these different processes that in most cases are really backed up by AI in some form. Same thing with expense management. Fraud detection is a big area where AI is applied. Financial forecasting and planning. Now, as an example, there's a very popular application called Betterment. This is an AI-driven, what is really called a robo-advisor or robo-advisor is another term you may hear. Cash flow management, financial statement analysis is another big area. I've read a couple use cases on that lately. Regulatory compliance is another big area as well. And then risk assessment. Now, when it comes to risk assessment, companies are always looking at transactions in many different ways. Banks have to look for everything from, do you have the money in your account? Has previous checks and deposit cleared? Is a signature correct? Does the transaction fall in line with your usual patterns or not? There's a lot of things that it looks for. Also, too, where does a deposit come from? And where is it going? Are these known accounts? A lot of things that the banks look for, such as AML and fraud detection, KYC. These are things that the financial sector is really big on. So compliance, risk assessment go hand in hand. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about AI-driven fraud detection and risk management. Now, there's no question that the credit card companies, the networks that they employ, such as MasterCard, Visa, Amex, the major three, for example, and I'm sure others, use AI to probably the maximum level that they can, in the sense that they're using AI a multitude of different ways. And they've been doing this literally for decades, so it's nothing new to these card transaction networks like MasterCard and Visa. So with that said, they're looking at, again, the data and determining, is that transaction valid or not? When you go and use your card in store, and then an hour later, they figure out that your card was used 3,000 miles away in California when you're in Florida, then there's probably something wrong, especially if it's, all within an hour of each other. That actually happened to me, and I remember, I wasn't in California because I'm still in Florida, and I couldn't possibly go from that store that I used the card at to a gas station in California. So the point is that the card companies are looking at a number of different data points to determine, is that transaction valid or not? And that could be anomalies, but it could be behavior as well. Now, another thing, too, they're looking for is they're looking at how machine learning is applied in AI. So they're constantly upgrading their systems. They're constantly changing their algorithms. And they're also employing tools for customers to change as well a lot of their use cases for the card. So, for example, some customers may want to use what's called like a travel alert, or they might want to block certain merchants. All of this is backed up by AI in some form in these networks. So the card companies are employing a number of different ways when it comes to detection of bad transactions and also identifying potential fraud as well. Now, there's two examples. The first one is Visa, and the second one is MasterCard. They have really great articles posted on what they're doing. For example, with Visa, they're looking at over 500 data points for each transaction. Can you imagine how complex that is? So if you go to the grocery store and spend $120 there, that transaction is actually being analyzed pretty much in real time to determine is that a valid transaction or not. And some of these data points, as an example, could be not only where you use a card, but how you use it. As an example, you have a chip on the card. Do you use a chip reader? If you don't, then you might use a swipe. If you don't use a swipe, some people will use the NFC connection. That's the near field communications. That's when you tap your card on the merchant point of sale system. So it's an interesting model that they have because they're saying, okay, well, he typically uses card and typically never uses NFC. So if they see NFC, then that might actually be a potential fraud. So they may actually decline that transaction. But if you use the chip reader, then your transaction may be fine. So these are things that they're looking for. And some of the other data points that they're looking at is, of course, around has your credit score fluctuated too much. They're also looking for, as well, what you're buying and where you're buying. There's been stories of people trying to use their Amex when they go to, like, let's say Nordstrom's, and then they go to Walmart. So, again, how true that is, but that's a transaction that is very different, right? You don't typically go to Nordstrom and then go to Walmart after. So Amex was well known for declining those transactions because it seemed behaviorally that didn't make sense. Now, with that said, that's just one example. Now, MasterCard has their own platform. That's called the Decision Intelligence Platform. Now, they're doing pretty much the same thing Visa does, but the article does state a few things they're doing differently. They're looking at additional data points, but they're also providing the customer, the cardholder, and also the merchants as well, opportunities to set up their patterns a little bit differently. In other words, the customer can add travel alerts. They could decline those monthly subscriptions. So there's a lot of things that the customer can do as well and add data points to their system that looks for potential fraud. They have a great article there that goes into how MasterCard is employing their system and adding different data points and providing different features as well to merchants. So with that said, there's a lot going on in the world of finance around fraud detection, no question about it. Great articles as well. I encourage you to take a look at them. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about personal finance AI applications. Now, more than likely, you have ran into tons of different financial-based applications that you could use for your own personal finance. No question about it. There's a ton of different applications. However, there's certainly not as many AI-based ones, and sometimes using an AI-based one can provide great value. And typically you see AI personal finance applications focused on investment portfolio management. For example, my HSA that I use for the healthcare savings has that, and also mutual funds and my stock account as well. So pretty common to see that, not really unusual now. Financial planning and advice, budgeting and goals, visualization and reporting. So those are probably the most common ones that you'll see AI in most cases. There's certainly other use cases, but those are typically the major ones. Now, what are the benefits for the user? So why would you want to use an AI-based finance application over a non-AI? Well, a lot of that comes down to the amount of personalization that you could set up. Allows you not only to set up, for example, your dashboard, but allows you to have the AI system in the background look at your behavior and provide you a focus on, let's say, specific articles that you want to look at or specific stocks you want to look at. This is, again, the personalization part that we see quite a bit now in finance applications in general. Accessibility. So it provides access to financial advice that may not be available. A great example of that is if you use, I think it's Merrill Lynch or Charles Schwab, the major companies, like I think Charles Schwab is one I have, but as an example, they provide accessibility to a broker that you could speak to, or you could use the AI-based one for free. So it's all about, again, what you want to pay for and what you want to really consider in your scenario, right? It's all about, again, what you really need. Proactive guidance. This sort of goes into where AI is providing you more or less a workflow, decision-making help is the way I like to put it. So when I say workflow, what it's saying is if you input, I need a mutual fund with a 5% gain into the request that you're prompting your system for, it's going to provide you some kind of a response, and that could be a list of potential companies or funds to look at, or it could prompt you for additional information to narrow down the field of potential, let's say, funds you want to look at. Now, when it comes to financial literacy, AI can be used to not only provide training, but also advice for customers. This is a big deal. And then automation as well. So you could automate a lot of your requests in the background by using a lot of these systems as well. So what would be some of the potential applications that are out there? And this is by far not even a close list of the number of applications that are out there, but I want to talk about 3 specifically. The first one is Clio. This is a personal finance and budget app, and this is really more intuitive, especially if you're new to finance. You want to get sort of like what I call the prompt approach where, okay, you ask a question, you get prompted, what do you need? Do you like red, yellow, green? Okay, you say, I like yellow. Then it'll give you advice based on yellow companies, just as a simple example, right? And again, that's really the goal. And then it focuses like on budgets, and it's looking at your spending and saying, hey, did you really need to go to Starbucks today? Just as an example. And it does that to a degree. There's a term that they use. It's sort of like a bark, I think it's called on some of these applications, where it provides the customer sort of like a AI friend to say, hey, why are you doing this? You don't need to spend this money. Don't do this again, right? Now, Monarch Money is an AI system. This is, again, similar in some respects. And you sort of tell it what you're looking for, and it provides you, again, the same thing. Wally GPT. This is going to be where you could ask questions, and it's going to provide insight and opportunities based on how well you understand what you're looking for and some of the terminology that's used. So it's sort of an interesting application. I'm not super familiar with that one, but it seems like it's really meant, again, for someone really new, someone that's, trying to put together their life financially. Now, there's a ton of other ones out there. Betterment is actually a very popular one, especially like when it comes to trying to figure out retirement choices and stuff. So there's a lot of different potential AI-focused financial literacy applications out there. There's stock fund pickers. There's also debt management advisors. You name it. There's probably a finance application that's AI-backed to help you with that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's discuss how your business can use AI to improve your finance and accounting strategies. One of the things that we learned from the previous lessons is that AI has been around in the world of finance for quite a while. So there's nothing new there under the sun, really, where AI hasn't probably been applied. So as a small business, or you're working for a larger business, or even if you're a solopreneur, you could use AI to improve a lot of your business finance for sure, and not to mention personal finance as well. So we want to look at how you can automate tasks. Now, let's say, for example, you want to collect expenses for your business. You could use software such as QuickBooks Online for self-employed or for small business. And what that can do is literally ingest the transactions via an API from your bank accounts or your credit card companies into, for example, the QuickBooks system, and it'll sort out everything and organize everything from a expense perspective or income perspective pretty much on target most of the time from my experience. So that's a simple way you could automate, let's say, bookkeeping tasks. Now, fraud detection, and this again is really being handled, for example, by your credit card processor, by the credit card company, the network. Financial planning. Again, as a business owner, you may need to do some planning and figure out how your budget is. Do you have cash flow issues? Again, as a business owner, you may run into situations where the cash flow isn't there. You may have a customer not pay on time. You may also have unexpected bills come due, whatever those things are. So planning can be easily done with a lot of these finance-based tools for a small business. And risk management is certainly there. Now, one thing that you may want to consider is look at human resource applications or CRM apps to help identify risk if you want to hire someone or you're taking on a new customer. There's a lot of variables that you could set up in that to help you identify concerns. Being able to get real-time financial insights is certainly a big deal. Now, you could go to a third-party site and they could provide you that real-time insight. If you go to apply for a business loan, a lot of these, financial institutions that provide these loans, basically loan brokers is probably the term I should use, they have applications that are already AI focused and allow you to go into a dashboard and view basically via a grading system or a number system how well your business is doing. So there's a lot of things that AI can do for you even as a small business. You could also look at compliance and regulations as well. This is something you definitely want to look at, especially if you hire people. You'll definitely need to be in line there. Decision support. So being able to identify how things should be handled is really a big deal as well. Now, there's a lot of other things we could look at from a finance and accounting perspective as well. It could be dealing with additional legal issues. It could be also, too, managing tax payments. A lot of things can come into play here, and there's a lot of great applications out there that can help you as a business owner or a financial expert in your company to actually address these concerns. With that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this demonstration, we're going to walk through Bing AI and talk about some ways that this service can be used for providing personal finance help and assistance. Let's proceed to the demonstration. Microsoft Bing has a chatbot, and it's AI-powered, and it uses GPT-4, which is the learning model that
ChatGPT also has access to as well. Now, for those that would like to find information on current events and not have to pay for ChatGPT 4, this is a great source. Also, too, if you want to use a chatbot and have it validate sources for you, this is really good as well, because what you could do with this Bing is you could go over here and ask a question about what is the stock price of, let's say, Microsoft today. It'll go ahead and pull up the latest articles, and you confirm the sources of where that came from. So that's really great to be able to have as well. Now, when you prompt Bing, you go down here and you could ask a question and ask it to find something, ask it to solve a problem. In this example, let's say I just want to ask the Bing chatbot, what would be the best way to start trading stocks? And all I would need to do is say, what is the best way to start trading stocks today? And again, fairly straightforward, simple question. And it'll take a second, and then it'll come back up. You see the green check mark, it found something. And it tells you really brief information there. And it gives you that list of what you should do. And then it identifies a source as well down here. And there's a few that are listed here. Then you'll see there's an ad. That's one of the things you have to deal with some of the free platforms. Just be aware of that. No big deal, but just be aware this is not a source, this is an ad. So this is NerdWallet, Young in the Invested, and Stock Trader. So you click on this specific link and it brings you to the article. Now let's go ahead and ask Bing to find another finance-related topic, and I'm going to just ask it to identify the best stock in the hospitality industry to invest in. And it'll go ahead and kick that up in a minute here, or less than that, hopefully. And it is listing, according to NASDAQ, the top hospitality stocks. Then it lists Motley Fool as well. So you can see there that it's providing you insight immediately. And also, too, you'll see down here that it provides you some alternate prompts that may be of interest to you based on what you just entered earlier. So Microsoft Bing is a valid option if you really want access to a free chatbot that uses GPT-4 and will also provide you the source and will also provide you a different level of what I would call resources than you would be able to receive on ChatGPT. Remember, Bing is going directly out to the internet. ChatGPT still doesn't fully have that capability. Remember, ChatGPT, we have to pretty much be comfortable with resources from 2021, unless if you use extensions with ChatGPT. So with that said, Bing is a great option for you to learn on and practice and also get information as well. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson.
Welcome to Module 7. In this module, we want to focus on where AI is going and what can we expect from AI, as well as the benefits and features and capabilities that we may see in future releases and services around AI. This module is broken into 3 lessons. The first is going to cover some of the latest developments in AI. We'll talk about implications of AI for business and society. And then I'm going to wrap up the module with a discussion around how we could develop our own AI strategy to take advantage of not only the current capabilities, but the possible and more than likely capabilities that AI will provide down the road. We have a lot to cover in the module, so let's proceed on to the first lesson of the module. In this lesson, let's talk about some of the latest developments in AI technology. When it comes to AI, this is probably right now the most competitive area for venture capital. It's also one of the more competitive areas for getting developers. And so we're seeing a lot of activity in this area. Now, some of the advances are around deep learning, generative AI, for example, reinforcement learning, natural language processing, explainable AI, AI in healthcare, and then ethics and bias are just some of the areas that we're seeing a lot of the advancements around. Now, when it comes to these advancements, at a high level, they just really mean that they're really focused on a niche area and they're trying to make those areas better. So what exactly would be deep learning? So deep learning is really an AI method that is used that is really enabling the computers to process data in a number of different ways, but also to try to think like the human brain. Now, deep learning models are commonly what is used to recognize what are really complex patterns, and that can be anything from pictures to text to sounds to facial features, you name it. And the goal is to be able to provide better insights, better predictions, better results. So that, in a nutshell, is deep learning. Now, generative AI is AI that is really focused, and when I say focused, it's really trained to produce content. An example of that would be ChatGPT or DALL-E are two good examples. And so the goal of generative AI is to provide content that the user is requesting. That's really, at a high level, what it really is. Now, reinforcement learning is an approach to machine learning, really, that's used to learn about the environment that the software is in, or even a robot, for example, could be a great example of reinforcement learning. So if we have a robot, that's going to be programmed to act in a certain way, to act as a human the best it can. And as an example, if the robot is going to proceed forward, it needs to know that the ground is smooth. So it's going to use trial and error to see how far the arms can extend, how far it can walk with its legs. This is all done via reinforcement learning, and it's really, again, a form of trial and error based on the environment that it's in. Now, NLP, natural language processing, is really a form of AI that is concerned with how to interpret, manipulate, understand human language. As far as explainable AI, simply put, it's really a way that processes and methods are used that humans can really understand and also be able to trust the results as well. I like to sum up explainable AI as more of a workflow that people can understand at a high level. That's really the goal of explainable AI. So with that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, let's discuss some of the possible implications around using AI in business, but also for society. Now, one of the main areas of focus that we probably have read about and heard about is the possibility that AI is going to take away thousands and thousands of jobs, possibly millions. Whether or not this comes to fruition or not, it's certainly changing how certain jobs operate, and it certainly has reduced some overhead in some niche areas, such as customer service, maybe support, and some other areas as well. But in general, we haven't seen AI kill millions of jobs from that point of view, at least. Now, it is important to realize that with AI, machines will replace jobs, and this can occur and is occurring certainly at a slower level than I think the media has sort of put out. Now, AI is certainly, though, creating new job opportunities as well, no question about that, especially in the world of computer science. Now, AI is transforming business operations, impacting employment through automation. Now, one thing that is certainly going to occur is that AI is going to likely modify some roles, require different skill sets. For example, if you're a content creator, you may need to learn ChatGPT. However, will ChatGPT take away your job? Probably not if you're a really good content creator. But again, who really knows? Now, customer service, this is a big area for AI, no question about it, and we're seeing a lot of adoption in that area. And then lastly, when it comes to AI, it can enable focus on creative, human-centric tasks. And so what that really means is that perhaps we won't have a lot of the jobs that have a lot of redundancy in it. We want to focus on having jobs that are going to be more creative. Now, businesses like the idea of efficiency. So efficient AI is certainly an area that you're going to see, especially around possibly restaurant operations, e-service, delivery services, logistics, right? These are areas that efficient AI can certainly exceed in. Now, this goes into the same topic of how food may be ordered and delivered, inventory management as well. Now, a great use case is AI can constantly look at inventory levels and then order automatically in specific areas that it has been programmed to. Now, a great example of that is, I think about a year ago, you were reading in a lot of media that certain retail companies over-ordered, such as Walmart and Target. And the reason is because they had their systems in place using AI to perform automatic orders. So if inventory went below a certain level on, let's say, tissues, then it would automatically order. However, it didn't take into account changes in behavior. We had COVID, and so there's a lot of dynamics there that AI just could not adjust to. It wasn't programmed to. Data-driven insight, so being able to make decisions quicker with better information. And hopefully, too, businesses certainly would expect better profitability as well. Now, what about society? So we know that businesses are looking for creating efficiency, for creating new roles or reducing roles. But with society, it's a little different. When it comes to AI, it could have multiple impacts around productivity. So, as an example, we have autonomous vehicles, the ability to drive down the road and not actually drive is a big deal. So you may have, for example, a Tesla that has that autopilot feature. Planes already have a lot of this, right? Pilots can kick in autopilot and the plane will figure out based on the speed and the elevation and other variables such as pointers in the weather and the wind, right? It'll adjust to that. Now, as far as some concerns, now society, of course, could be changed significantly if there's too many layoffs or the roles require different levels of experience, right? These are things that can occur. Now, ethical considerations is another area as well. So can AI replace a person? Can it do a better job? Is it biased, right? These are things that, as a society, we want to think about. Lastly, too, we want to maximize potential by using impartial, secure, ethical systems. So we don't want to have, for example, in responses or in behaviors and patterns, program very specific political views or historical facts that may not be facts, right? These are things that, again, that can occur with AI if we don't have the right systems in place. So with that said, let's move on to the next lesson. In this discussion, I'm going to go ahead and talk about how you can put together an AI strategy that will be successful for your business. Planning any kind of project is going to take some time. It's also going to take some insight, and so we'll need to really ramp up the knowledge and understanding where we are technically in our environment to where we need to go. So putting together a successful AI strategy is going to take some time, and there's a lot of different steps to consider. But first, I want to just make it clear that whether we're new to AI or not, going from a solution that doesn't use AI to use an AI or an application that is currently in use and then adding AI to it is really a project. So therefore, we need to understand that this project has to be planned, and we have to understand the type of resources that we need, but we also need to look at it from the business as well, from the financial perspective. So what is going to be the cost that we need? What is going to be the return on investment, the ROI as well? So we need to look at all of these potential initiatives in our organization and actually say, here is where we're at and here is where we need to go. And this is going to take some time. It's not that easy. So one of the things we have to be aware of, too, is that AI is still a work in progress in a lot of cases. Sure, there's some great programs out there, great SaaS solutions, and there's a good amount of technical expertise now. So getting a project from 0 to go to 100 is probably going to be pretty successful if you have the right people in place with the right resources. So what exactly do we need to do to have a strategy? So let's talk about what we need to have a successful strategy for our business. Now, the first thing we need to do is to really understand what we have. Generally, we refer to that in the world of project management as discovery. So we need to really understand what are the applications, what are the services we need to actually migrate to an AI platform. Is it as simple as a cloud-based solution where we change APIs? Or is it more complex where we have to build something out to accommodate the application? We also need to understand, too, what exactly is the organization expecting from this? What do the stakeholders actually believe that AI is going to provide them? Is it going to provide, as an example, a better return on investment? Is it more financial driven, or is it more providing better support or shorter logistics processes, for example, for the company. So there's going to be that need to understand what is the real expectations. Then we need to understand, of course, the use case and put it together, because we're going to really want to look on the internet, do our searches, and see, has there been any other use cases for this type of application? And if it's a common type of application, such as CRM, sales, customer service, there's probably going to be a good amount of them to refer to. So that gives us an idea of what we really need to assemble and look for when we plan our project. The next step is to really put together an architecture, and that is going to be part of the project plan, at least done at around the same time, because we need to make sure we understand all the parts and pieces, and do we have everything in place to actually kick the project off. And again, this is going to be the technical debt that we need to really assemble. So when it comes to understanding the architecture, we need to look at what our capabilities are. We need to understand the technologies. We need to understand, too, what is the development languages. Those are just some of the things. So from a strategy perspective, we need to understand that. The next thing we want to do is to look at the potential tool, the partner, the vendors. So if it's going to be a SaaS application, look at that specific SaaS application vendor and look at the features, understand how they're implemented. Look at, for example, too, what are the pros and cons of the tool. Make sure that you're comfortable with that. Make sure as well that your stakeholders are aware of the pros and cons, what it can do, what it can't do. The next thing we want to do is to make sure that the organization is ready. Now, if it's a small company and you only have a few people and you're using a SaaS application, it's not going to be a major deal. It's more or less you making the time and putting the effort to make it all work. On the other hand, if you have a larger organization, this is more or less going to be more of an initiative in the sense you're going to have the stakeholders in place, the investment in place. For example, this may need to use a CapEx funding model. It may use OpEx. It depends on the organization. But with that said, you need to make sure you have everything in place. The last thing we want to do is to actually assemble what is called a roadmap. This roadmap is really your project plan, but it's more or less visualized. We're going to have the different steps, the different phases involved, and identify what we have in place and where we need to go. So make sure that we have that plan put together. We also want to calculate the cost, especially if it's a larger project, have that ready. Now, generally, too, we want to consult with the vendors, have them look at the plan, get some feedback, talk to your stakeholders, make sure that all of this makes sense to them, and then once you get their confirmation, everything looks good, then go ahead and execute your roadmap. Get your plan started, put together everything you need to have that successful AI project. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Welcome to Module 8. This module is the closeout module of the course, and we want to go through a short summary of what we covered in the course, and then we'll go ahead and close out the course formally. Let's go ahead and proceed to the summary. In this lesson, let's go through a short summary of what we covered in the course. So we learned about AI. We know that AI is the process of teaching computers how to think and act like a human from a response perspective. We also learned that AI has the potential to revolutionize business, increase productivity, solve problems, provide content, any number of capabilities. We also learned as well that businesses can take full advantage of different use cases and the different types of AI as well. We learned that there's two types of AI from a high-level perspective. We have what is called weak AI. That's what we really have right now. That's our ChatGPT. That's really IBM Watson. That's your Tesla driving down the road. That's also Google Bard. And those are in use now in production. Then we have strong AI. This is where we're expecting the AI to not only act, but to feel like a human, to think like a human, and to provide results like a human would. Now, there's a lot more that goes into that, but that's more futuristic from a capability perspective. Now, we also learned, too, that there's a lot of things we want to consider when we're looking at AI tools. We want to look at what our business objectives are, and then also perform an assessment or just some of the things we need to look at when we're looking at AI tools, whether they're for accounting for our business, personal finance for our own personal use, or it's for human resources, for legal, whatever that use case is. Lastly, we learned that AI is used widely in finance and accounting. We know that it's used in a number of different use cases, and for that matter, finance has been really one of the leaders in AI when it comes to adoption and use cases. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the closeout of the course. Congratulations on completing the course. I wanted to personally thank you for joining the course, and I wish you much success in your endeavors around AI, your career, and life in general. Thank you.